Welcome to In the Studio, a production of Davis Media Access. During the pandemic, we've been recording these shows remotely via virtual software. My name is Jeff Shaw. I'll be the host today. And today we're happy to welcome Kara Hunter, the Executive Director of the Yolo Conflict Resolution Center. Kara, thanks for joining us today. And why don't we just jump in? Tell me a little bit about why and how Yolo Conflict Resolution Center came into being.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you for having me here today. It's my pleasure. So the Yolo Conflict Resolution Center has been a nonprofit in the community and in the region for about the last 6 years. It was born out of the City of Davis mediation services that eventually lost funding, and the folks that were involved in that program didn't want to see this good work go away, so they formed a nonprofit. And since then, the services that YCRC offers to the community and really to the region have expanded well beyond mediation services to include restorative justice services and workshops and trainings. So that's a little bit about who we are and how we got here.
Right. And so and I also saw on your website that you have in-prison programs. Is that something that's relatively new, or has it been recently expanded, or?
It's relatively new. We started going to Folsom State Prison in 2018 to offer a host of workshops to the inmates there, including conflict resolution, restorative justice, and anger management. Since the pandemic, we've only been able to go back on a very limited basis. So we still are offering those services. It's just been a little bit difficult recently to be able to go into the prison itself.
And Yolo Conflict Resolution Center, to me, seems like it was ahead of the curve in some respects. And I don't really know how statewide, if this is I'm wondering, in your opinion, is this a growing trend in other communities or other states even? Are you aware of that being a trend, of these types of services being offered in the community?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you. I think that mediation services certainly aren't new, not only in the state, but in the country. I think mediation and conflict resolution centers have been around for a long time. I think what's different about YCRC is that we also offer the restorative justice programming, which is, I think, very much on the cutting edge in terms of how we offer services in lieu of traditional criminal processes. I think you see that in different pockets throughout California and in the United States. But I think we're honestly doing some work that I think is unique. And is something that slowly but surely is starting to expand to other counties and other regions throughout the country.
Well, brings me to my next question, which I was very curious to see if you see your role as, or at least part of your role, as helping folks even stay out of the court and criminal justice system. We kind of know that it's a heavily burdened system. And to that end, I'm wondering if you ever receive feedback from those working in the court system for helping alleviate some of that burden that they see.
Absolutely, yes. I think, and we do that two ways, primarily through our restorative justice services, which we get referrals from law enforcement, from the district attorney's office, from school districts that are meant to completely divert those people out of the criminal justice system. And if they successfully complete a restorative justice process, the recidivism rates are incredibly low. So we don't see those folks come back and commit future offenses and then, therefore, like you said, burden the criminal justice system. But honestly, I think we also do that through our conflict resolution skills workshops. I think a lot of times, situations that escalate and become a lot more serious could have been alleviated much earlier if folks had strong conflict resolution skills training. I think a lot of us have probably experienced making a difficult situation worse by not being able to exercise good conflict resolution skills. And so I think we're trying to mitigate, the burden on the criminal justice system those two ways.
And just to follow up on that, Have you gotten a lot of feedback from those working in the systems to sort of who've commented and seen that really mitigate, as you say, the burden? I mean, have you heard from them?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
That's
Not only locally with our partners through probation, through the police, and through the district attorney, but also that's what the research shows. Research has been done fairly extensively on the restorative justice practices specifically, and the evidence demonstrates, incredibly low rates of folks coming back into a criminal system. And so that feedback is quite clear. And then also just anecdotally through talking to the folks that have gone through our restorative justice services and what they've learned and how they changed and the transformation both internally and externally that have taken place that help them go down a very different path than maybe the path that they were on initially when they came to us.
Yeah, excellent. And you probably get this question a lot, but I am curious if the pandemic has affected services you offer, or if you've seen an increase in the request for services during the pandemic.
Yes, we have gotten that question a lot. And I am very proud and happy to say that, being able to offer our work in the virtual space has allowed us to continue to offer services at the same level than we were in the past. In fact, part of why folks might have been hesitant to participate in our programming in the past has been just convenience. Where do I have to go? How long do I have to be there? And so being able to offer those services in the virtual space has been something that our clients have really taken to. Only a few times have there been access to technology issues, which we were able to remedy quite easily in terms of offering, computers, Wi-Fi access to folks so that they could participate. And then also, if you have been in conflict with somebody or you've been harmed by somebody, you may not want to be physically present with them. And so being able to participate in what can be a really difficult conversation virtually, a lot of times is more appealing to our clients. And so, in those ways, it's made our service provision a lot easier. And then also we've had a handful of situations where people are out of the area. And so, again, the convenience of being able to access services virtually has just made it easier for folks to participate. In fact, we've had a few victims say that they wouldn't have participated in a restorative justice conference had they had to physically be in space with someone else. So, I'm really pleased that the pandemic has taught us a lot about offering our services virtually and the benefits of doing that.
That's really interesting. There's a lot of aspects that the pandemic has taught all of us, and it's interesting to hear in your work
Yes.
how that's changed. Do you see
Yes.
any kind of differences generationally in how people sort of come to your services, or maybe even how they handle conflict? Are young generations more open to talk about it? Are older generations sometimes more willing to commit to the work involved? I mean, I'm just curious if you see any trends like that in your work,
That is
or
such an
if it's sort of
interesting question, Jeff. I don't think anyone has ever asked me that before. I will say that as a society, most of us aren't comfortable, talking
right.
about conflict or don't really have a set of skills in which to engage in a positive dialogue when there is disagreement or there's frustration or anger around a situation. And so I will say anecdotally, I haven't noticed a lot of differences demographically or generationally with folks, kind of willingness to enter into a space where having a difficult conversation, is an option. But I will say, once we've been able to talk to people and just help them understand, what participating in a mediation is like, or what participating in a restorative justice conference is like, once folks have a clear understanding, there is a will to want to resolve whatever it is that brought them to us in the first place. The readiness of doing that is still quite varied. And so we've recently introduced a new service that we're calling conflict coaching that is really meant to prepare people for either participation in a mediation or a restorative justice conference, or just to better prepare them to deal with conflict in general. And we have found that to be something that folks are interested in, because most of us have had the experience of, you know, what started as a very small conflict or disagreement becoming much bigger than it needed to be, and really becoming destructive. And so we're trying to change that paradigm into how conflict can be productive, and that we can learn
Yeah.
from those experiences and better ourselves.
It's interesting that there is an education element to it, and I like how you called it readiness to approach the conflict resolution process. And
Yes.
yeah, I guess in all of our work, sort of, there's always a bit of education in the terms that we use, but it's amazing how universal some of this. Some of the work that you do is, and to the human condition, as they say.
Absolutely.
To that
Yes. That's well said, Jeff. Yeah.
I did want to say briefly, just to give folks sort of an example of your work. Something I saw on your website was maybe the word coexistence, and I'm wondering to. I'm just wondering if there's like a difference between coexistence and forgiveness, just to give people sort of a flavor of some of the work that you do. Is coexistence a way to resolve conflict? Maybe you can just speak briefly to a little bit of that in the time we have
Yeah.
left.
Yeah, no, I think coexistence is sort of a strategy or tool that we can utilize to live with difference. I mean, it can be that some of the conflicts that we find ourselves in, or some of the situations maybe where we've been harmed or created harm, aren't resolvable. And so the idea of coexistence is, how do we live with that? Is it possible to live with, a difference in a relationship that isn't resolvable? How can we continue to maintain a relationship if that's appropriate, if the conflict is so great that we're never going to be able to come to an agreement on it? I think the forgiveness aspect of things, really, that's something we've been exploring in our both our mediation and our restorative justice work over the last couple of years, in how forgiveness can play a role in managing that experience. So what can I do personally, in the realm of forgiveness, to move through this difficult experience? And sometimes forgiveness is a good option, and sometimes it's not. But I definitely think coexistence is a tool that I use personally in my life with those relationships that I know that the differences are there and they're not going anywhere, but I still want to have that relationship. So we explore how we can continue to have a relationship or coexistence, and manage those differences.
That's really interesting, and
Mm.
just hope that this gives people a flavor of sort of the services that you have to offer, and and sort of the depth of knowledge that you possess in helping people work through these things. And I
Thank you.
think Davis and Yolo County are very lucky to have the Yolo Conflict Resolution Center around. I'm wondering if there's anything else you wanted to add, or specifically, what is the best way for people to support the Yolo Conflict Resolution Center?
So there's a few ways to support us, and I will say, we offer regularly just community workshops, community online, book discussion groups, and I would say participate. Come join us, be a part of a conversation, be a part of a workshop. We would love to just engage more in the community, or more of the community, to understand what it is that we're doing. The best way to do that is either to subscribe to our newsletter, which you can do on our website, or to follow us on Facebook. We're a little old school in the social media realm, in that we only have a Facebook page. We don't do other forms of social media. But certainly, I think those are the two best ways, just to kind of keep in contact with what we're doing. And if there's a workshop or a seminar, or, like I said, a book discussion that's coming up, we would love to have people participate in those. And of course, we're a nonprofit, so we're always open to donations, or other
Yes.
types of support that community members are interested and willing to offer.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for being with
Yep.
us. We've been speaking with Kara Hunter, Executive Director for Yolo Conflict Resolution Center. This has been In the Studio, and my name is Jeff Shaw. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kara.
Thank you, Jeff.